how have they never played that before? I don't think they have, but it's perfect. Well done, sirs. I was thinking like that's almost like they reverse engineered a story based on like what would be a good series to do with this theme song of Mr. Roboto. And, anyway, so
yes, be on the lookout for the next piece by this guy, Leroy Brown. So.
Hey, Litternet. It's Paul. It's Matt, the Dork Lords. We are here talking about Mr. Robot, the series finale, which featured 2 episodes, episodes 12 and 13, Who Am I? And Hello, Elliot. I think a satisfying finale.
Yes, I would say.
It did not do the sci-fi word all time traveling. Thankfully, which we hoped it wouldn't do.
Yeah, and it didn't.
And it didn't.
Yeah.
So, boom.
There we go, boom, boom.
Thank you,
it was
Sam.
all in his head.
It was all, yes.
So that's why someone finds it very satisfying.
Yes, yeah. It was all in his head, so it's Legion. The 2 episodes, I mean, I'm glad they showed them together, although there is a very specific demarcation line between the 2. I feel like if I had just watched episode 12 and then had to wait a week, I'd be like, what? Yeah. So I'm glad I was able to resolve it. Because
it's
basically,
funny, like I watched them together, so now I'm trying to remember, where is that break?
That break is basically where Elliot kills other Elliot. And it's like, don't blame me. I'm not a bad person. I just wanted this life. He doesn't do this, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, that would have been very frustrating.
But he's got bloody hands. I mean, he has killed...
Yes.
Theoretically real Elliot. In his mind, real Elliot.
Right.
He's not real Elliot. But, so the first hour does something we didn't necessarily predict everything in this, but we generally said, I'll bet you it's going to be the same scene we just saw from the perspective of Hoodie Elliot. And that's kind of what it was.
Sure.
Right? He goes around, he goes, look, I got the phone. There's no Darlene in it, but interesting. I'll go visit Angela's place where she's staying. Does he meet me up with her parents? And he ended up talking or hearing his other voice. Like, oh crap. Goes back to Sweater Elliot's place and starts hacking him. And that's pretty funny, some of the stuff he sees.
Yes.
Like little Facebook. This guy's popular. He's got friends.
Yes.
He's, just kind of living a very, like a typical life by design, as we find out.
That's right.
But he's got this hidden partition on his drive, which has sketches of Hoodie Elliot.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I see now. Somehow there's a connection here. This guy who seems perfect in a lot of ways. Perfect's the wrong word, but seems
much more well-adjusted than the alien
must have a dark side.
He must.
And here it is.
Yes.
We have Sweater Elliot show up.
Yes.
Who
as
you?
He did in the
correct
season or the last episode. Yep.
And we have that confrontation. And what's great here is that the show implies temporarily that perhaps this is the real Elliot, and that Hoodie Elliot's just a doodle.
Yeah.
It's like, occasionally I write about this guy that seems, dangerous, and I imagine myself that, but I wouldn't want to be that guy.
Right.
I mean, that guy, he's a loner, he's unhappy, he's angry all the time.
Yep.
I don't want to be that.
Yep.
And it was like, I didn't think they were going that route, but part of me is like, man, if they go that route, wow. And just a fictional character in my...
Just be like, and we're done with the story.
And so there's an earthquake.
I'll call it Mr. Robot.
And so every time that they come into some kind of a understanding or they start to meet in some way, that's when these earthquakes happen. And so in this moment, when they're having this squaring off moment, there's an earthquake. And Sweater Elliot falls, hits his head, and it's in this moment when Hoodie Elliot decides, I could just take his life.
Yes.
He's going to marry Angela tomorrow. That's cool. He's got a good gig. Everyone's alive. I'll just step into this life. Kill. And you're like, oh, man. Our hero just did a incredibly supervillainy type move.
Yes. Now, as a side, this reminds me of an episode of Taxi.
Okay.
So you watched Taxi?
Yeah, back in the day, it was a
so
comedy.
There was There was an episode
Not
where
Taxi Driver.
where all the taxi drivers in the company.
Danny DeVito. You got other people. Judd Hirsch.
Judd Hirsch. You got Joey,
Andy Kaufman.
Andy Kaufman, yes, and Nardo.
Okay.
So everybody was saying what their fantasies were.
Okay.
And so, some people imagine they'd meet all these famous people, or there'd be like a chorus line kind of, day where everybody was dressed up and they did, sort of like a fantastic number. And so everybody's talking about their fantasies, and Alex Rieger, played by Judd Hirsch, says, well, you can't just have your fantasy, it ends up the way you want, right? They're like, what are you talking about? So he tries it. He tries to have a fantasy. And so he meets this incredible woman, and this stuff keeps happening. And he keeps saying, no, I want it to be good. And it ends up that in his fantasy that the woman turns out to be his cousin. So he's like, sorry, you're this young woman that I met a long time ago in my family. Okay, so he just can't do it. He can't have a fantasy that turns out well.
I got you.
He's incapable of doing it. And that's what, Mr. Robot, he can't do it either. Elliot has to, let me create a safe place where it's not safe. No, nothing's going to happen that you want to have happen. You're going to end up killing yourself and have to hide from the police.
That's right. You have to be pushing your other in a box down the street in broad daylight. As you try to go to your wedding.
Yes.
Which is a fascinating scene there. That kind of reminded me a little bit of American Psycho. Where he's got in like a bag, and then he's walking out with the body, and he's getting stopped, but no one seems to really. All right. Anyway, so we've got this situation where Elliot has just maybe killed off actual Elliot, and he's going to step in his place, and we don't know what's going on exactly.
And I think it's worth mentioning that, that couldn't actually be actionable, right? In this world, there's an Elliot who's living everything that he possibly wants. But in the real world, how would that translate? Would it just be him acting like he's okay all the time? I guess.
I see what you mean. What would be the... Yeah, because
the
this
real
actually
world
wasn't... I think what we learned is that Sweater Elliot is not an actual personality. It's not one of the personalities of our real Elliot Alderson.
Right.
He's just he's a creation of what they call the mastermind, Hoodie Elliot.
Right.
I think that's the reason why he looks like Rami Malek, is that Hoodie Elliot created this version.
Well, all the versions of him we see look like Rami Malek, though. So.
Well, in other words, there's the Christian Slater, part
right,
of the personality.
That's true. Yes, that's right.
Kind of I'm saying, for instance, if he killed Christian Slater, that would be different because it would be a part of Elliot Alderson's personality that is now gone. Who knows? As opposed to just this little stuffed animal, almost like a little puppet. It's like, it's gone. What we come to learn is Hoodie Elliot. There's a scene where he meets up with his therapist. It's not his therapist, but it's a version of his therapist, so they can have a conversation. And I think there are 5 personalities. He has a DID, dissociative identity disorder.
Yes.
Obviously the first identity that came out was as a result of the trauma of jumping out the window and this, the abuse he's getting from his father, and that was the protector, which is Christian Slater. By the way, they played Domo Obrigado, Mr. Roboto to start, and I was like, how have they never played that before? I don't think they have, but it's perfect. Well done, sirs. I was thinking that's almost like they reverse engineered a story based on what would be a good series to do with this theme song of Mr. Roboto. Anyway, so
yes, be on the lookout for the next piece by this guy, Leroy Brown. So
it's a great series. So there are 5 of them. One was this, they call it the Protector, Christian Slater. There was the Persecutor personality, the Mom. Personality that doesn't get a little fun tag, Little Boy, who again is as a reaction to this abuse. Then we get the Mastermind, which is Hoodie Elliot. And then they are kind of, I think they more than imply that we, the audience, are standing in for a personality called the voyeur. And so we are the fifth split personality inside the actual Elliot Alderson.
I'm so glad when we finally got integrated with everyone, because it was just so
I know.
confusing.
We were the thing holding him back,
Yeah.
frankly. So we actually never see the actual Elliot Alderson in the show. We see his eyeball and he's crying, but other than that, we don't actually see him. So so Rami Malek is not the actual Elliot Alderson. He is a part of him,
right?
So but I think the idea is, and you tell me if this jives with what you're thinking. But
oh wait, let me practice my response. No. Okay, go ahead.
Perfect, great then. Okay, so mastermind Elliot to try to protect the actual Elliot, but we need some names for these.
Yeah, really.
But,
Elliot Prime.
Elliot Prime. Elliot Prime will be our actual Elliot Alderson. Okay, so to protect Elliot Prime, Mastermind creates this very safe world where everything goes right.
Sure.
The only difference being that there's no Darlene in it.
Right.
And I think that the implication was that was the deliberate design so they could, at the moment that he wanted to pull him out of the safe space, they could, because there was no Darlene, and Darlene would be the hook to maybe bring him out. But he creates a safe space with a little, everything's great, and I'm popular on Facebook, sweater Elliot, so that while Mastermind is trying to make the world, the actual world, safe for Elliot Prime,
sure,
Elliot Prime exists in this fake world.
Right.
Well, at the time now when we, Mastermind Elliot fixes things. Oh, I've destroyed the Deus group. I just solved the problem with the machine.
Yep.
The world is now ready for Elliot Prime to come back.
Sure.
And so the idea is going into that world to bring Elliot out, but Mastermind Elliot, he doesn't want to relinquish control.
Right.
I mean, eventually, the overall thing is he does. Hence, the reason he kills the guy. But he doesn't want to. He's been in control for so long that giving up control feels weird, awkward. He doesn't know how to do it.
Right.
And so he's keeping Elliot Prime from emerging from his safe little shell.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, eventually, when he meets up in the boardroom with the other personalities, and they all leave to go to the movie theater. He eventually does, and by sitting and watching the events that are unfolding, it's their version of saying, "I'm now giving over control. I'm not up there controlling the projector. I'm watching this unfold." And so we then cut to theoretically a now more well-adjusted. We won't call him completely well-adjusted, but a more well-adjusted Elliot Prime waking up,
yes,
seeing his sister there. He says, he being Mastermind,
yes,
Hoodie says, I'm a part of him.
Yes.
But I'm not him.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, I know. I get it.
Yeah.
I've kind of always known. And she says that she backed away because she didn't know how to handle the situation, but
right.
But she's there now.
Right. So, yeah, and that she knew it wasn't him, and then she could tell. And I guess part of it was that time we saw in the first season when he forgot that she was his sister. Right,
so, which maybe goes into the idea that in this safe world, she's not there. And so maybe over time he would forget about that he had a sister. So it's a story about mental health. It's a story, in some ways, this sci-fi trapping almost just gets dismissed. Like, well, there was a machine, it's gone.
Well, thankfully,
fine.
Like the thing that felt like the core, because I think if you look at the episodes that we've done, that we're talking about what's going to happen, most of it focused on the hack and White Rose and all that. Mm-hmm. And even though I think they disposed of that rather neatly, in a way, we didn't actually see too much of White Rose and her delusion. But the fact that I think all along, though, it's the core of it has been Elliot and his difficulty in dealing with the people around him, and though his want to do the hack had relevance to him, but it was that's not the thing that makes him happy and makes him do better. It's actually his interactions with other people that caused him to have to confront how he was living his life, and how he, the things that he was led him where he is, which is the abuse, and how he dealt with it.
Right, and we do see that, there's a news story that says, oh yes, White Rose is dead.
Right.
And there was a near nuclear meltdown, but it was averted, and that we learned that Elliot was saved by that particular room was shielded, whatever. So it's kind of like they just dispose of it, basically.
Right, and it was interesting that I feel as if the maker of the show wanted to make explicit to people, like, is this real? Yes, this stuff actually happened.
And a few different people talk about
Darlene, like, no, this really.
I'm going to recount all the things that show you
all this
real.
Stuff happened.
Damn it. I guess we're left to believe then that White Rose's machine, it was thwarted, so we don't know, but maybe she was just crazy. I don't know.
I think so.
Yeah. Seems like a very rich person that was also deluded and came up with a plan that.
Well, and she was describing herself similar to, to Elliot. So, I mean, if we can extrapolate that, she had developed this really extensive fantasy life to,
That's true. And she was pushed to the edge by the fact that she had lost a significant amount of her resources thanks to Elliot, perhaps, also pushed things along. But anyway, so yes, that part of the story in some ways was, I don't like to say a misdirect because it wasn't, but it was not the point of the story.
Right.
And so it becomes a much more individual, personal story about Elliot Prime's growth as a person. How he's dealing with the abuse that made him splinter off into these different personalities.
And we didn't get an answer to whether or not Darlene knew the abuse.
Right. I was waiting for that conversation, and it never happened.
Yeah.
I got the feeling she did, but I don't think there was a specific
No,
line.
I really don't. Because I feel like there was a point in the series, it's kind of hard to remember now, where she contradicted his rosy opinion of their father or something.
Okay.
I'm not sure. It'd be interesting to watch it all again.
Yeah, obviously, in the Sweater Elliot version, that's why the dad is great and awesome.
Right,
it's
right,
a
right.
safe version
Right.
of the dad. We do, just as the evidence to suggest that Rami Malek is not Elliot Prime, is when we see in the idealized world, when he's trying to push the body of Sweater Elliot down the street, Dom shows up as a cop, asks for his ID. When he gives it, she's like, Elliot Alderson, you look nothing like him. Now, we don't see what's on the card,
Right.
but I think that the intent there is to show he is not Elliot Prime. He is just a personality, a piece of the pie. One of in the Trivial Pursuit game, he'd be the arts and literature part. And so yeah. Anyway, it was I thought a very satisfying conclusion.
Yeah.
It kept us guessing, and yet also wasn't such a mystery box that it just fell apart or something.
Yeah, no, thankfully it all felt of a piece, so it wasn't like, what? As I had said before, whether it was the end of The Prisoner.
Right, there weren't monkeys.
No.
Okay, good.
And Beatles songs.
It wasn't the kid looking into a snow globe going,
Nope, it wasn't, no.
So there we go, everybody. If you've got some comments or thoughts on this quality end to a quality show, feel free to put it down here in the comments, and we will chat about it. Coming up next is we've got the season finale of The Mandalorian. So come back for that, and Happy New Year, everybody. Talk to you. Bye.